skills are slipping.
There you go.
We on. Yeah, yes.
Let's just talk about it. No pressure, just dialogue. On the Tisa Batey Show. Let's just talk about it. No pressure, just dialogue.
Hey, sweet baby.
Tisa Batey Show. Let's just talk about it. No pressure,
What's going
just
on?
dialogue.
What's going on?
On the Tisa Batey Show.
Welcome.
Let's talk about it.
Welcome to the Tisa Batey Show. Courtesy musical productions, courtesy of Seth Warren, Buck Warren. Thank you, Seth. Welcome to the Tisa Batey Show, guys. I am so excited. Probably more excited about this broadcast than I am about any other that I've done. This broadcast has been highly sought after. It's been one that you guys have been requesting, and I finally feel like I'm strong enough to be able to pull the broadcast off. Because what you don't want is a host who can't host because she's a mess. So welcome. You hear what I'm saying? I mean, y'all agree with me, right?
Absolutely.
Clark, Brady baby. I gotta be strong enough to do it. I can't do it. This is plain and simple. But I am so excited. Welcome to the Tisa Batey Show. This is going to be a power-packed show. And I'm so excited about my guest. This show is entitled Picking Up the Pieces After the Loss of a Child. Picking up the pieces after the loss of a child. And to be quite honest, there's no one I felt could speak or who was capable of speaking to this subject matter better than Margie Moore, First Lady Margie Moore. And before I bring her on, just let me tell you a little bit about First Lady Margie Moore. First Lady Margie Moore is, first of all, a woman of God, a true inspiration and a woman of God. She is a minister of music. She can beat the heck out that piano. You hear what I'm telling you? Plays for choirs all over the county. She's the first lady of Cedar Grove Baptist Church, where her husband, Reverend Pastor Lionel Moore, resides as pastor. She's a devoted wife. She's a wonderful mother. She is the number one Gigi or grandmother in the world. I don't think any grandbabies love a grandmommy any more than they love their grandmommy. And the thing that I'm probably most proud of is that she's also my mom. She is my mother. And so I am so excited to add and welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, Mom.
Thank you.
Hey, beautiful. Hey, how you doing?
Hey, pleasure to be here.
And y'all, this is what 70, almost 71 looks like.
Wow.
So, hold on. Just hold on.
Wow.
Mama, I think I need. I do photography as well as music also, and every now and then I run across mothers that do not match anything that the age would suggest. So I call them sister mom. Because y'all, you look like you could be a sister.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Tisa, you can say you got it from your mom.
I can honestly say I got it from my mom.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wonderful woman. Welcome to the show, Mom. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this podcast. I know that you are a very private person.
Yes.
So I know that sometimes, things like this could be a little bit uncomfortable for you, but I also know that you have a gift. And I also know that you have blessed many others through your testimony on how you've overcome and how you've gotten through
Uh-huh.
the loss of a child. So I just want to turn it over to you at this time. If it's not too painful for you, I just want to go ahead and dive right in and ask you if you can talk about that day that you got the phone call.
Sure, I can. I had just come from church, actually, but I do best, I suppose. And I just recall, normally when someone calls me and they ask, who is this? I would say, well, who did you call? But on this particular evening, when the person asked, who is this? I told them, and they asked me did I know a Patrick Batey? Yes, of course. Long story short, I went on to Oak Ridge where they told me, I said, well, okay, you're calling me, so tell me what kind of an accident has it been in? They said a vehicle accident. And so I went on to Oak Ridge and I couldn't get in. They held me and they held me. And so I finally just told the nurse, look, I need to see my son. Where is my son? So after a while, well, has the doctor been here to talk with you? No, he hasn't. Okay, well, he's in a room. And then after a while, my brother-in-law and niece were there. Because I had asked someone, since I don't live in Oak Ridge, I live in Harriman, which is about 25 miles north of here. So I had to get to that hospital. And when I got there, I asked them, well, have you all seen him? And they said no. Well, they finally came and got me and took me in a room where my brother-in-law and my niece was. And finally, the doctor came in with about 3 nurses. And mind you that this is the facility that my son worked. He was an employee of the Oak Ridge Medical Center. So they all kind of knew him. And so the doctor asked me, what do you know? I told him, I said, I know nothing. All I know is my son was in an accident. And he just bluntly, just with no empathy, no sympathy, said, your son was in a car accident. He was ejected from the vehicle and he was dead on impact. Needless to say,
Wow.
he said that those were his exact words. He pat my, and it took me many, many, many years to be able to just say that. And he just kind of pat my thigh and walked out.
Oh, wow.
And I asked my brother-in-law, I remember grabbing my brother-in-law around the collar and I asked him, I said, what did he just say? What did he just say to me? And at that time, I just collapsed. I collapsed on the floor. That's something that you can't stand up under. So I collapsed. And of course, they, like I said, they knew him. And immediately they began to want to give me medication, to help me. But I refused the medication. But that's how it all started.
Wow. Wow. Can you walk us through the feeling that you felt?
The feelings are,
you
you exist. Just let me put it that way. You exist because you're in a state of shock.
Yeah.
And, and after having gone to meetings and to compassionate friends groups, you're in a state of shock for 6 weeks. And I believe that with all my heart, because naturally you cannot bury a child and be in your right mind doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're put in a state where you're able to function, to make the funeral plans, to pick out this and to pick out that. You cannot be in your right mind and do these things. So your body I understand that the body goes into a state of shock for at least 6 weeks. And then after that, comes, there's just so much to this losing a child. And I've always said, if I had a worst enemy, someone that I really resent, I would not wish this on anyone. It's a death like no other. In other words, it's the ultimate death. It's the ultimate.
Yeah.
And you can't come and tell me, well, I know how you feel. No, 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 you don't. You don't know how I feel. And that has actually happened to me, that people have come up to me and said, because I mean, at that time, I'm not worth the flip anymore. People coming to the house, but I found myself, Tisa, in the midst of all that, people coming to console me. Little did I realize at that time that the God in me was so strong that I ended up consoling them. Unbeknownst to me what I was doing. And I found out later on that they began to tell me, well, we come to console you, but you console us. But I did not think I could make it. I did not think I could live without my son. In fact, I will myself to die.
Let's talk about that, if you will. Of course, I was there and I experienced it with my mother. And as I stated, it has taken, I've had many people to message me and ask me to do a podcast on this very subject. I haven't felt that I was strong enough. I knew who I would call on to speak on this subject matter, but I didn't think that I was strong enough to do a podcast on this topic. And it has taken me, my brother died, was it 22 years ago?
23.
23 years ago.
Wow.
And it's, but I will say is this, I have experienced no pain greater in my life, in my 50 years of life, than I have when I experienced the pain of losing my brother. No greater pain to this date have I experienced, and that was my brother. So the fact that he was my mother's son, her child, which is not the natural order. The natural order, of course, is that
Right.
the parents go first and then the children go, and then, that's sort of how things work, but it's not always that way. So I knew that when I felt that I was prayed up enough and strong enough to do a podcast like this, I knew who I would ask. But what I want to ask you, Mom, is to take us through the emotions, because grieving is a process. And I think a lot of people feel pressured into just bouncing back and being okay after they've suffered a loss this traumatic. Can you talk to the viewers a little bit about the grieving process and what they should expect?
It is a process. You go through, like I say, for the first 6 weeks, you're in a state of shock. After shock, after you kind of get through this, then there's anger. And after anger, that's a process within itself. You have several months, or even, it takes a mother about 5 years to be able to get over her child. I understand it takes a father about 2 years, but it takes a mother about 5 years to really get back to some sense of normalcy, you might say. But you go through anger, you go through rage, you go through denial. These are all in increments. It takes a while to get through this, and then you go through, I think the hardest part is realization. That comes later,
Wow.
because to me, I got through because I'm thinking, okay, he's in service. He's coming home. He's going to call. Your mind goes back to why. You don't even want to believe it, and sometimes you're deceived. Your mind deceives you into believing that he's still here, because you do not want to accept the fact that your child is gone.
Right.
And then the thing about me is I could not put on a facade for anyone. What you saw, the way I reacted is what you got. I wasn't going to allow people to coerce me into doing something that I wasn't ready to do. In other words, I was a pianist, yes. I wasn't ready to get back out there to do that. In fact, about 3 weeks after I buried my son. And mind you, this was my firstborn and my only son. And I mean, and by being out in the public eye and being a figure in the community and just traveling all over the United States singing, you know, it was nothing for people to come up to me 2 or 3 weeks after I buried my son and want to book a program. Lord, why did they do that? You know, I mean,
Talk about that. Talk about how people need to be sensitive to.
exactly. That's what I'm going to get around to. How
So many
people really
don't know what to say.
they really need to be sensitive to what they. And you know what? I think a lot of I know my brother for one, and my sisters and all my family that saw what I was. Because listen, I was the tower in the family. I was that rock of Gibraltar. You know, nothing bothered me. Absolutely nothing. But when I lost my son, when this rock fell, everyone else fell on top of me. You know, I mean, so they saw what I was going through. I mean, to the point that you can't eat, you can't sleep. It's like a video recorder that goes over and over and over and over in your mind, and you want to turn it off, but you can't. And a lot of times people think, you know, after a week or two, you're over it. They are. Yeah, they're over it because it's not their job. But you know, they come and they want a program or something, you know, and I think it's so unfair. But you know what? It's simply because they don't know any better. You would be surprised at the people that come to you and what they say. And you know, and sometimes people will say things that make you want to just knock their heads off. I mean, this is what I experienced early on in life. So that's what I tell people now. I can't tell you what to say to that mother or those parents that have lost a child, but let me tell you what not to say. You know, I tell them that and then you would be surprised at the people that avoid you because they don't know what to say.
Right.
So I've hit on that as well. You know,
tears
but you know what? People need to be sensitive to folk because you know, if it's not your child, do you think after a week or two, you know, we're over this? No, we will never. If I live to be 100 years old, I would never, ever get over the loss of my child. Never. Because when I lost him, I lost a piece of me. And there's a void there. There's a void that can't be filled by anything or anyone. I don't care who comes in and after you. And like I said, when you lose a child, you know, it can't be compared to, oh, well, I've had people tell me, well, I know how you feel. I lost my mother. Oh, no, you don't. No, you don't. Listen, it can't be compared to mother, father, sister, brother, husband, wife. There's no comparison. I'm telling you. That's the ultimate loss. I feel like sometimes, like Martin Luther King, I've been to the mountaintop. And I've seen the promised land now. You know, even when I will myself to die, and I'm going to throw this out there, I don't know if Tisa knows this or not, and I was hospitalized, you know, because I was willing myself to die. And even at that time, developed double pneumonia. And I believe this to the day that I die, that my spirit took flight and left my body because 3 times they came in my hospital room and told me, your monitor is showing you dead. Your monitor is showing you dead. I didn't want to live. And people would say, well, you know, you have other children. Listen, you don't want to hear that at that time. You don't want to hear that. And I talk to a lot of preachers, you know, when they would get up and preach and say, you know, sure, Revelations tells us God's going to wipe the tears from our eyes, you know. Right. But you know, I tell people, you need to be careful what you say to people that have lost children. Number one, we're not hearing what you say anyway. But don't you know that crying, every tear is healing? So when you don't cry, when you're not at liberty to express your feelings and to cry and to bail and to do whatever, you're only prolonging your grief. So please don't ever tell anyone, don't cry. You know, you've got to be strong. Who do I need to be strong for?
Absolutely.
I remember a Bible verse saying that in your weakness, his strength is made perfect. And we push so many people not to be weak. Like at certain times, you have to know your limits. You have to know how strong you are, and you also have to know when you need help. And it makes no sense to call no other name.
Exactly.
I think I can attest because I'm a minister of music as well. I can't even speak on and say that I know what you feel, and you've made that perfectly clear. However, I've had times where, as a minister of music, our responsibility, we miss family reunions, we miss funerals,
Right.
we will miss to keep to keep things flowing in the church. I know that firsthand, and it just struck me, when you said, weeks after, they're already trying to, okay, well, let's do this. Well, when is the next thing? When is the next that?
Yeah.
You hit me in my chest there. You hit me in my chest there because I know that feeling. It could be something that will stop the world for you. However, the world
Right.
seems
Yeah.
not to care.
Right.
And
Exactly.
It still wants to go on. It still has to go on.
yeah, I want to say this.
Yeah, the world still has to go on. What say you, DJ?
Yeah, I want to say back in 06, when my first wife, my previous marriage, when we lost our oldest son, it was like for a man, it was like shock. I didn't what did I say? I've raised him. I married into him. I met him when he was 12 years old, but he died when he was 20, 28, 29. And that day we got the call that he
Same age as my
passed.
brother.
And wow.
29. Mm-hmm.
The day we got the call that he passed, for me, it was like shock. For my wife at the time, my first wife, it's just like the whole world stopped, and it just that pain is I can't explain what she was going through. The only thing as a man I could be there for, just to console her and to encourage her. The only thing I could just say, just cry, just let it out, Don't hold it back, because the more you hold it back, the that loop keep going, and it was just so hard for me because I watched him grow from a little boy to a young man, and I got a chance. I knew his father pretty well. So his father was in the Bahamas at the time when he passed, and I was calling all the villages. I was calling every little place in the Bahamas trying to get him. Finally got him, and he made it in time for the funeral. But just to witness the pain that she had to go through, and also to be there to make arrangements, because she wasn't able to make the arrangements, the final arrangements for him. So her just to be there to help her with that process, man, it is I want to use the word grueling, but it was a hard process to do. Just thinking about the casket, tombstone, and all this stuff. It's just it's rough.
It's very grueling.
And
it's very rough.
And,
it is. And
just listen to it. It brought me to tears just thinking about that, and it took me back to that moment. Yeah, I miss him too. It was a good kid.
I can honestly say that I was there, and being a sibling, like my mom said when it happened, she pulled us together, me and my sister, and said, we are going to get through this. We will get through this. And she was still in shock at the time, but she said, I didn't raise you all to be like this. Some families are close like this. She said, my kids, y'all were raised to be like this. And we were. And so, that's just the loss of a sibling. And I know that there are some siblings who don't get along. And I understand sibling rivalries every once in a while, but just to not have a close relationship with your sibling, I don't understand that, because my brother and sister are everything to me. But at this time, I want to sort of give way to someone who wanted to come on the show, and I wanted them to come on the show, and I reached out to them, and they have been through what my mom has been through, and they pay homage to her, and I have very clearly expressed that without my mom's help and guidance through this process, that they didn't think they would be here today. So I want to add to the string today my cousin, Latasha Johnson. Latasha Johnson, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so glad to have you on the podcast with us today.
Glad to be here, cousin.
Thank you so
Margie.
Hey, baby doll, love you.
Love you more.
Latasha, if it's not too hard for you, can you talk a little bit about that day and the loss of your son as well?
I can. my son was 19 years old, and he died December 20th, 2019. And I had cooked dinner that night, and my son was leaving the house, and he comes in my room. He says, "Mom, don't put the leftovers away because I'm going to eat again when I get in." As he always did. He was a big eater. And he left about 7:38. And around about 7:59, that was the time of his death. I didn't find out until later on that he had passed. So when they had sent me to UT Medical Center, which was an hour away from where I lived at the time, I was in Roane County. I drove to Knoxville. I go into the emergency room, and I asked for the head nurse. I said, my son has been brought here with gunshot wounds. She says, "We don't have anyone with gunshot wounds." And I said, "Okay, I'm from Roane County. Can you please tell me where he's at?" So she calls Roane County. I drive an hour back to Harriman. And I get there, and I'm not really thinking all I want to do is get to my son.
Absolutely.
Because I'm in the medical field, and I know time is crucial.
Right.
So I get there, and this officer pulls me to the side, and he says, "Are you Miss Johnson?" I said, "Yes, sir. I need to speak with you before I let you see your son." And I said, "No." I said, "I just want to see him." So I get in the room, and I see him. He's just laying there. It was very hard, very difficult as a mother. See your son there with his eyes open.
Wow.
And not able to say, "Mom." So I immediately went to chapel. I asked where chapel was. Mama Margie, I call her Mama Margie. Her husband was there, Reverend Lionel. And I just remember him praying for me. And I felt like just running. I don't know, I just wanted to run because my mindset was just, I couldn't grasp that he's gone.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Just couldn't. The reality of it wasn't setting with me in my mind. It didn't register that he was gone. But I will say this: my daughter was 16 years old. Those were my two children, and I understand what Mama Margie means when, you have another child, but at that time, you're not in the right mind frame to grasp that you got to keep going for that other child. So when I say that Mama Margie, without God and Mama Margie, I wouldn't be sitting right here talking to you guys today. This year will be 11 years that he's been gone. And
So
you just learn
2009.
how to cope. 2009. And little did I know later on, a few years later, he got killed on Mama Margie's birthday.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
And God has seen fit when I get up on that day, I think about my son, but I think about Mama Margie. It's a day of celebration for her life. Took me a minute to get there, but I got there. But this woman, I would call her at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and she always answered my calls. Her and her husband would get down on their knees and pray for me while I was on the phone. When I say that's unconditional love, if I had 1,000 tongues, I would never be able to repay her. If I had all the money in the world, I would never be able to give her every gift that she deserves, because she was unselfish with what she had went through, but she taught me through it. When I thought I was losing my mind, she said, "No, baby, you're not losing your mind." When I wanted to die, she said, "Our bloodline, we have the same blood running through our veins, and you strong, you're going to make it." And here I am 11 years later, and I praise God that I work every day. I do what I do, and I'm not just living, I'm living. You understand?
Yeah.
I love it.
And that void will never be filled. So, Mama Margie, I love you. I love you with all my heart.
I love you, baby. You know that. You know
You
that.
know what?
Yeah.
This is touching to me. This is really touching to me. I mean,
Yes.
woo, woo! I'm telling you, I'm fighting DJ Grady Baby and G Clark to hold back these tears. I really am. I'm fighting to hold back these tears. I mean, this is something that, you know, and even when I think about sometimes, even when I think about, even, you know, because sometimes, you know, we don't like to think about negative things, but sometimes when we worry about our kids when we shouldn't, sometimes even when I allow my mind to think about them not being here anymore or anything happening to them,
Right.
I lose it at those moments. Like I got to get myself back together. And I'm like, the devil is a lie. My seed shall live and not die in Jesus' name. I have to start speaking and declaring that, and because it messes me up on the inside. So I can't imagine. I have to be honest. That's one thing I cannot imagine going through: losing a child, losing my baby. Like I just couldn't fathom that.
Yeah.
So I want to ask, Mama, if you would, can you give advice to, you were talking earlier about what people should not say when they're trying to console or comfort someone who has lost a child. Can you tell them some things that they should not say? Because a lot of people just don't know.
And that's true. They just don't know. They think they're doing the right thing. And I mean, you know, but when you're in a state that you're already in, like I say, all it does really is just kind of make you angry, you know. But if I were to give some advice, some of the things that I would tell you, and I wrote down a few little things, Tisa, so if it's okay.
Sure.
That don't phrases that don't help. It was God's will.
Oh.
How many people have you heard say it was God's will?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Or
those are considered fighting words.
be thankful you have another child. Some people say, or they say, I know how you feel. No. And time, time will heal. Time heals all wounds. No, time stands still for us.
Right.
It moves on, but we're stuck in a time zone. You know, totally zoned out, you might say. So time moves on. Time waits on no man, but we're stuck.
Right.
It takes, yes, we get through after a while, but it's going to take a few years to get there. You know, they say, well, time heals. And there must have been a reason. There must have been a reason for this, you know, or they said to me, I think it's really idiotic. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but it's, or God needed, I've even had people tell me, well, my son was a bodybuilder. He was a professional bodybuilder, a pro bodybuilder. Well, you know, God needed another Samson up there. God needed another Samson up there with him. I've even had people to tell me that he needed another, or God picks the most beautiful roses out of the garden. Don't come to me with that stuff.
Right.
It's been 23 years and I still hurt. And sometimes Tisa, I still bail her. I don't just cry. I bail her. Because I miss my baby. If it's all right with you, that was the thing. Is it all right if I just read a little something for you? This is how I feel. And perhaps some more mothers and fathers out there. And a lot of times people will tell you, you know, well, you gonna leave those photos and things up in your house? Yes, I am. Yeah. And this is what I want everybody to know. If I don't leave anything else with you, let me leave this with you. It's called understanding. And this is me. And it's being a bereaved parent is not contagious. So I wish you wouldn't shy away from me. Please don't kill my child again by removing from your home his pictures, artwork, or other remembrance. I wish you would not be afraid to speak my child's name. My child lived and was important to me, and I need to hear his name. Losing a child is different from other losses and must be viewed separately. It is the ultimate tragedy. And I wish you wouldn't compare it to your parent, spouse, brother, or sister. If I cry or get emotional if we talk about my child, know that it isn't because you have hurt me. The fact that my child has died has caused my tears. You have allowed me to cry, and I thank you. Crying and emotional outbursts are healing. I will have emotional highs and I will have emotional lows. I will have ups and downs. I wish you wouldn't think that if I have a good day, my grief is all over. Or if I have a bad day, that I need psychiatric counseling. I wish you knew all of the crazy grief reactions that I'm having. And just know that they are, in fact, like I told Tasha, whatever you're going through, just know that it's normal. Depression, frustration, anger, hopelessness, and the question of values and beliefs are to be expected following the death of a child. So please don't expect my grief to be over in 6 months. The first few years are going to be traumatic for me. As with alcoholics, I will never be cured or a former bereaved parent, but I will forever be a recovering bereaved parent. It's normal and good that most of us re-examine our faith, values, and beliefs after losing a child. I will question things that I've been taught all my life and hopefully come to some new understanding with my God. I wish you would let me tangle with my religion without making me feel guilty. I wish you understand the physical reactions to my grief. I may gain weight or I may lose weight. I may sleep all the time or I may not sleep at all. I may develop a host of illnesses and be accident prone, all of which may be related to my grief. Please don't offer me drinks or drugs. These are just temporary crutches. And the only way I can get through the grief is to experience it. I have to hurt. I have to hurt to heal. My child's birthday, the anniversary of his death, and the holidays are terrible times for me. I wish you could tell me that you're thinking about my child these days. And if I get quiet and withdrawn, just know that I'm thinking about my child. And don't try to coerce me into being cheerful. Grief changes people. I'm not the same person I was before my child died. And I never will be that person again. I really won't. I'll never be that person again. If you keep wanting me to get back to my old self, you'll stay frustrated. I'm a new creature with new thoughts, dreams, aspirations, values, and beliefs. Please try to get to know me, the new me. And just maybe you're like me anyway, or you might like me after all. And this is what I believe. This is me. This is what I thought. You know.
Wow. That's absolutely
Powerful.
whew,
Powerful.
Very
that's very
touching.
powerful.
Yes.
That's very, very powerful.
Yeah.
Um,
I
I mean, that's
and you're
how I felt.
absolutely right.
That's how I
Yeah.
felt. That's what I don't want nobody, folk, people mean well, even family, they want you to get together, especially early on. Come on, let's get together. You need to come to dinner. You need to do this. No, I don't need to do anything. You need to just let me deal with my feelings the way I deal with them. And when I look up, and the thing about it is, when I look up and I still see you have your child over here, you have yours over here, what do you think that's gonna make me think? I'm the only one there with the child that's gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that adds to the hurt.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think that people, and I know, I can speak for your family. I can't speak for all families, but I know that for your family, for our family, they worry about your well-being. They want you to be okay. They don't know what to do. You're the first one. You're the first one to, well, Aunt Ivory. I'm sorry, and I certainly don't want to make light of that, but she lost a baby. But nobody knows how to really console you. They just know that they want sis back. They want you to be okay, and they want you to be whole. And like you, when Patrick died, there was a really, really big chunk of me that died with him. And like my mother, what I did was I convinced myself, and I'm not saying this is the healthy way to do it, because I think if I had to do it all over again, then certainly I would try to do it differently. But the pain was just so significant. Um, like her, I told myself that he was in Okinawa, Japan, the Far East, still in the military, in the Navy. And I told myself for 14 years
Yeah.
that he was going to come back. And I buried it in my mind. And I kept telling myself every time I thought about him, I would tell myself that he's in the military, he's in Japan, and he's coming back. He's coming back. That I felt like that was the only way I could get through it. But when I broke and when I finally realized that he wasn't coming back, it was like a ton of bricks. It was the most excruciating pain. And it spiraled me down into a really deep, dark place. And I know that everybody has their way, their own way of grieving and dealing with loss. And I don't know that anybody's way is any better than anybody else's. All I know is that it encompasses a lot of pain. So I want to, one more, Grady or G. Clark, do you guys have anything that you want to add right now? Because I have one more final question.
I have a question that I would like to ask Mom. What point, how can you encourage somebody? At what point you was able to, I can't fathom the words, to, you know, at what point were you able to say to yourself, let's move on and to be able to help someone else, you know, help Tasha? What was your mindset like, and what did you tell yourself in order for you to help somebody cross that bridge?
Well, Grady, it's like my daughter said, all I've known all my life, all I've done all my life was serve God. So I was so angry with God, you know, because I would tell God, you know, I read in your word that when you rose with all power. You know, so I was so angry with God. So you had the power. You had the power to do this. I went so far as to even challenge God. And there's no use me lying, because one day I'm going to stand before the judgment seat. And I mean, this is just the way it was. I was so angry with God until I stopped doing everything for about 3 years, basically. I existed. You know, I existed. I was just a dead man walking is all I was. But you might not believe this, but I guess being as spiritual as I am, and I mean, I'll call God into question, you know, why? And I think about Job, you know, and God said, you know, he told me, you know, why God, why this way? And he said, where were you when? You know, I think about all that stuff, but everything that I wanted to bring up to God that was negative, there was word in me that would not allow me to do. What I wanted to do was really sin. I mean, I really wanted to do every kind. I thought to myself, well, perhaps if I had done every damnable thing under the sun, perhaps if I'd been promiscuous, perhaps if I'd been a wino, perhaps if I'd done drugs, this, that, the other, perhaps if I'd done all those things, maybe my son would still be here too. That was the way I thought about it, because I was just so angry. I was angry with my mom and my dad because they had 11 children and they had never lost one. That was just the anger. That was the rage at that time. You know, but it took me about 3 years. But after about 3 years, Grady, I'm going to tell you what got me to that point. I was at the cemetery one day, and I even was angry with my son. I was angry at the world. Just wanted someone to say anything to me. And it felt like you just want to put them out of their misery. That's just how angry I was. I'm telling you the truth, you know. But I was at the cemetery one day, and I told Patrick, I said, why did you do this to me? You had a will to live. Why didn't you will yourself to live? Why? And as sure as I'm talking to you all tonight, my son's voice came to me, and he told me, he said, Mama, I did have a will. And let me remind you that he was 29 and he suffered head trauma when he was ejected out of the vehicle. He suffered head trauma. He said, I did have a will. He said, but I saw what I was going to be like if I had stayed here. He said, so it was my will to go on. And at that point, I'm telling you the truth, so help me God. At that moment, a big black shadow came up out of me, released me. Wasn't nothing but death. It loosed me right there in that cemetery and released me after 3 years. That was the beginning of my healing. When he told me that he knew what he was going to be like if he had stayed, I guess in a wheelchair, whatever, I'm not really, but he saw what he was going to. But I was loose. The stain of death that had me gripped for all that long had to loose me, brother. Y'all, I'm telling you, it had to loose me and let me go. So at that point, I began to think like my son. He would not want to be here if I began to take on his line of thought. So that's when I began to be able to talk and minister to other people that begin to lose children. You know, and I would tell them, you know, this is what you're going to hear. Just like I told Tasha, baby doll, this is what people are going to say to you. This is what they're going to say. You know, and she's called me back, Mama Margie, you were so right. That's exactly what people say. I said, well, baby, if you can, you just handle it. And I mean, I've had numerous people, praise God, that have come to me. And I hope that in some small way, I've been able to help them to transition, you know, from being a parent that has lost a child to just living as normal as we can be life again. You know, but I can tell you the steps that you're going to have to go through and the anger, you know, that you feel, you know, it just is. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing. But it took me about 3 years, Grady.
Wow.
Mama, you've given me so much clarity in this little time that that I've been listening to you. This past week, I've been reminded of my great grandmother. Like I can count it 3 times this week, and she died roughly 17 years ago. She lived to be 98 years old,
Wow.
and I remember towards the end of her life, like the last 4 years, she would joke about death. And me being, you know, in my early 20s, I'm not ready to let her go. We're finally building some type of relationship. I could feel like there was something between us. She wouldn't let me get too close. But I can remember vividly, you know, the last time I saw her alive, we went down the Bain Bridge, and she was sick and in the hospital. I walked in the room with my older sister, and she saw me. She lit up. She said, "Gayron," and she's the only one that can call me Gayron. She said, "Gayron, I thought the next time you see me, I'd be in my box." And I told her, I said, "Grandma," I said, why you do that? Why you joke?" Because at that point in time, like it frustrated me to hear it. And she let me know. She said she lost her first baby girl at she was stillborn. She had to bury both of her sons. All of her friends at that point in time, she's seen them buried. And at that point in time, like you were saying, she was. I honestly believe she was willing herself.
Yes.
And for the life of me, I couldn't understand it.
Wow. It's all right.
But you giving me clarity. You giving me clarity, and I just want to say thank you.
You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. Yeah.
Wow.
And don't be ashamed. I'm gonna tell you one thing. Don't be ashamed of those tears.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They're healing.
Absolutely.
Healing. They are. Every tear is healing.
I'm going to tell you something that I have learned, you know, and, you know, for me and my baby sister, we have experienced some tremendous loss. The 2 men in our lives who loved us unconditionally, who were, in our eyes, almost indestructible. We lost them the same way because 13 years, 14 years after my brother's death, my father died in a car accident, and
Deja vu.
the accidents paralleled one another. And I'm telling you, what I have learned is this: death is something that you learn to deal with each day. It gets a little bit easier, but you never get over it. You never get over the
Right.
loss of a close loved one. People ask me, well, how long does it take to get over it? And I say, I don't care how many years you have on this earth, you never get over the death of a close loved one. But it does get easier to deal with every day.
You get through it if you don't get over it.
Through it. If you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, if you just keep moving forward. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I used to have to find my secret closet, and I would just go in it away from everybody, and I would just cry. Many nights I've cried myself to sleep. But like my mom says, each time I've cried, I feel a little bit better. Tears are healing. Don't ever allow anyone to dictate to you what your grieving process needs to be.
Exactly.
Tasha, I'm going to ask you if you have any words of encouragement that you can leave for anybody who may be experiencing this. And then I'm going to ask my mom the same question. And then I'm going to close this out because I ain't feeling cute right now. I ain't feeling too cute right now. But this has been a very emotional
That's all right.
podcast. This has been a very emotional podcast, and it's one that we've needed to have. And I just pray that we have, through their words of wisdom and experience, that they have been able to bless somebody else who is going through the same thing. So, Tasha, can you offer any words of encouragement to anybody who may be experiencing the same thing that you all have?
I would say, I grew up in the church, sung in the choir. You have to put God first. Never let go of God. He's always there, even when we feel like he's not. And it could be any situation in life, not just death, but anything that you go through. I can say, don't give up.
Right.
Don't give up. If you just hold on. I'm a living witness. If you just hold on, better days are coming. Better days are coming.
Yeah.
So true.
I want to say I thank God. Just this podcast, you all don't know how much you blessed me. You blessed me. And I hope that everyone that's listening, that's out there, that they take something away from this. Knowing that when you can't feel like you can't make it, you can. And I know that it's hard when you're going through it, because it was hard for me. And Mama Margie, I want to say this too, Tisa. I haven't lost a sibling. My daughter, I raised her and my son. They were brother and sister. That's what we called brother, and they called each other that. And they were so close. She shut down because that was her hero, was her brother. And I want you to reach out to her and talk to her, because you could help her. I know she's put it in a place where she has to move on with her life, but she hurts. And I just want to say, just hold on. Just hold on. Whoever's listening, just hold on. Don't give up. Don't give up. And I'm blessed by you all having me on. You're welcome.
It is our absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being on. I know it takes a lot of courage to do something like this, and I just applaud you, and I applaud my mom for displaying and exemplifying that courage. Mother, what words of encouragement can you offer to anybody who's watching who may be going through the same thing that you've experienced?
I'm going to tell for the mothers and fathers out there that are going for them. This is for the parents. And I tell them, and I told Tasha and anyone else that has come to me, I can't say that I know how you feel. Even though we both have lost children, I still can't say that I know how you feel, but I can certainly empathize or sympathize with what you're going through. So to those parents that are going through time, like I said, just don't let anyone, if I had to say, do not be coerced into doing something that you're not ready to do. You know, I mean, don't put on a facade. I just couldn't put on a facade. I couldn't do it. I have to be, I'd rather be me. I can't be accused of being a hypocrite. So I couldn't put on a facade. I just had to be me. And like I say, on down the line, mothers, 5 years perhaps, fathers, 2 years perhaps. You're going to talk, yeah, you're going to exist, you know, but there's never a day, not one single solitary day that you will go and not think about your child. And for the people, if you have anything to say at all to those parents, you know, sometimes you just don't have to say anything at all. Just don't say anything. But say something like, this must be very painful for you. You must have been very close to him or her, and you can even call the child's name. I have no idea what it must be like for you because I've never had to lose a child. Those type of phrases, you know, what will get people through. But whatever you don't, unless you are a parent that have actually lost a child, please don't say I know what you're going through or I know how you feel, because you don't. I said you don't have to walk a mile in my shoes. Just stand in them.
Wow.
Just stand in them momentarily, and I guarantee you won't be able to stand under it.
Wow.
Wow.
Just hang
Wow.
on in there, parents. Hang on in there, mothers. Hang in there, because you know what, Tisa, I personally know people that have not made it, and I told Tasha, and I'll tell anyone else, if you live through losing a child, if you actually live through that, you're a strong woman. Because only the strong survive. I actually know people
Amen.
personally. I actually know people personally that have taken their own lives because they couldn't handle the death of a child. Personally, I know that. So if you go, if you persevere, you're a strong person. Only the strong survive. And I'll tell people now, I'm not that same person like I told you I was before. Before my son died, I'm not that same person. I'm more sensitive now, you know. But one thing's for sure, I'm stronger than I've ever been before. Hallelujah. I'm stronger than I've ever been before.
Mm.
Amen.
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 Yeah.
And you know what I can say is she's right. You know, statistically, there are people who not only take their lives, but the divorce rate, married couples who lose children, the divorce rate is over 50%. I mean, it's such a traumatic, life-altering experience.
It really is. Yes.
Whew. I thank you all so much for availing yourselves to just bless others, because at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. Your words have encouraged both Latasha and Mom. Your words have been encouragement. Your words have been food to other people that they needed sort of to navigate their way through this process. So I thank you so much for availing yourselves and being on the show. Not a whole lot to laugh about today. I know we like to laugh and cut up on the Tisa Batey show, but sometimes it's okay to be serious. And this is one of those days, and it's definitely necessary to be serious. I apologize for any the Wi-Fi shortages or internet interruptions. I know that with patchy in some areas of the podcast, but hopefully you were able to take out of it what was given. And I will encourage my guests today, G. Clark, Margie Moore, Latasha, Grady Baby. We've got a lot of comments I didn't even get to read any of the comments today, and I usually like to do that. But there are a lot of comments. There are a lot of people who have a lot of things that they've added to this podcast, and I would encourage you guys. I would encourage the viewers, if you have any questions specifically for my guest today, certainly put their name in the comments. So Margie Moore and Latasha Johnson, if you specifically want them to answer your questions, please put their name in the comment. And I would certainly hope that you all would have the time to sort of go through and look at the comments and maybe answer any of the comments that the viewers have. Hey, this has been another Tisa Batey show. It's time to get out of here. I love you, viewers. You're relevant to me. Thank you so much for joining us.
Let's just talk about it. No pressure, just dialogue. On the Tisa Batey Show. Let's just talk about it. No
Thank you all.
pressure, just dialogue. On the Tisa Batey Show.